Hello, everybody. I am Shayna Weber from obviously ISA, and we are joined by Mikki Daughtry and Tobias Iaconis, who are writers. Hello, both of you. Hello. I love that they're both outside in their lovely settings, and it makes me want to go outside, and I'm in this room. Here's my treadmill, so enjoy. We are we are fortunate enough to have Mikki and Tobias on with us tonight to talk about their origin story as screenwriters. And we're going to first kind of get into what they're doing now, what they're working on currently, so yeah, what are you guys working on now? What do you see in the future? Sort of like, where are you at?
We are working on the screen adaptation of my last book, All This Time, for Lionsgate and Megamix Productions, and we are on the director search right now. So they're talking to directors, so that's exciting. Every little step forward feels like a little bit like a success. And then I'm working on my next novel for Putnam, which is called, it's called The Green Gladstone right now, but it's officially untitled and it won't be called that, but it's I'm busting my ass on that because the deadline's coming up really quickly and I'm so far behind per usual. We have a little comic book thing that we can't talk about. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we can say.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm. I'm like, there's something else. But that's what we're doing right now.
The comic book thing. Awesome. I mean, you guys are always so busy. I can't keep up. Whenever what's going on, I'm like, what are they doing now? What are they doing now? It's amazing.
We try. We feel like if we slow down, we die. So.
Right. Well, I mean, that's kind of, yeah, you just have to keep chugging along. Okay. So let's go back to how you guys both started separately and then how you came together. So Tobias, for you, how did you begin your screenwriting journey?
I moved to LA in the early 90s, and I had a degree in English Lit, but the school I went to had no film program. So one of the first things I did when I got to LA is I enrolled in the UCLA Extension program. It's like a night school, adult night school, and they have a really strong entertainment, business of entertainment program where I took some classes on screenwriting structure, screenwriting character. Took a few classes there, met some fellow students that I'm still friends with to this day. And the other thing I did, which was super important in my development as a writer, is one of my friends that I met at UCLA, he was a reader for ICM, one of the big talent agencies in town. It was even bigger back then. He was an in-house reader. And so he would feed me scripts that he was reading that the town was, sort of hot for, was really responding to positively. And it was super helpful, not only to read scripts of classic films, but also scripts of the moment, to see how they were formatted, sort of see what sort of material the town was responding to. And I joined a writing group. So I did this screenwriters group. So those three things, going to UCLA, just reading a bunch of past and very present scripts, and joining a writing group that would meet once a week, was kind of the first three things I did when I rolled into town. And the writing group and script reading, I kept up for many years.
Excellent. And then Mikki, we'll go to you about your beginning, and then let's talk about sort of how you guys found each other as partners and why that worked. So Mikki, what's your sort of like, when did you start writing?
Writing.
Well, let's start your screenwriting journey.
Okay. I was a theater major in college, got my theater degree, not in acting, but just kind of a general theater degree. Came to LA not to do any of that. I came to LA because I always just felt like I belonged here, like it was home. So I moved to LA and found this writing group through Ariel, who found it through something else. And she was like, oh, you have all those stories in your head. You should go to this thing and tell them. So it was Twin Bridges. That's where we met you. And that's where I met Tobias. And that's just kind of what happened. My story is not as long and drawn out. Not.
So was there a were you guys both writing separately? And what was the situation that sort of made you guys come together as a team?
I had been in the writing group for quite a few years before Mikki rolled in. And when she rolled in, she brought in this first script, and I was intensely jealous because her first script was just as good as what I had been, which had taken me 15 years to write. So I was so impressed. And it was she had written this lovely coming of age story, set in the South.
Which is
then she brought
now that's what we do, YA. It's funny that I didn't even think about that. My first one was a YA, and it never occurred to me that was. I guess that is where my heart is a little bit, because that was my very first script. Go ahead.
But what we really bonded over was Mikki's next script. She brought in a genre movie. It's an action horror movie about this badass female ex-Marine trying to save her sister from some hunters in the woods. And I loved that script. And she was one of the only other writers in the group at the time that had written in the genre, written a genre movie other than me. So that's sort of what initially connected us, is she clearly was also interested, although she wrote this coming of age script, she clearly was also interested in genre stuff, which was what I'd been, chasing for all those years. So
then, Mikki, for you, what sort of made you guys decide to try something together? And then what was that first thing that you guys wrote?
Tobias did. It was Tobias. And I think, was that my second script? Or was Elsewhere actually the second? And then I don't remember what order they came in. But I think Elsewhere was actually the second one.
Could be, yeah.
And then Fight or Flight was the third. And then, what I think, Joe, the leader of the writing group, you were working on Afraid. Is that right? You were adapting a novel into, and then they were asking, this is how I remember it. They were asking Spice to pull, it was an ensemble novel, an action horror, and it was an ensemble novel. And they were asking him to pull the female lead, pull up one of the characters as a female lead and make it about her. And that's the first thing we did, right? Because you came and asked me, would I mind looking at that? And he said, if you'll do this female thing for me, let me look at Fight or Flight, because I want to check out those fight scenes. And I was like, okay, because I knew, you've read Tobias's stuff, and his fight scenes are incredibly good, and all his action stuff is so awesome. So I was like, deal. I'll do your character shit. You figure out my fight shit. So we switched. And pretty much after that, we kind of started swapping everything that we were working on, even behind the scenes. We weren't even doing it in writing group. We were like, hey, will you check this out? Hey, will you check that out? And then I was working on a little thing that we'll finish it one day. And I didn't have time. And he was like, I told my agent about this thing you're working on. He won't say, there's nothing to read. Are you fucking high? And he said, well, I'll help you with it. And it was kind of like that. And then he said, and then we were just kind of talking about it. And it was kind of, I could probably still find the email where it says, maybe we should just make this thing official. Because it had been a few years. We're talking like it happened overnight, but it had been a few years that we were swapping things back and forth. And he said, maybe we just make this official, and 2 and 2 equals 5. And I said, I don't hate that idea. And I had never thought I would be able to have a writing partner. And I don't think I could have another partner ever. I don't think there's another person who could gel with me or deal with me or not kill me. And let me do what I need to do as the freaky, like, psycho person that I am. So, we did it. And what was really insane is it was, 3 weeks after that we just said, let's make it official that we were taking meetings. It was Austin. Austin happened. He submitted all the things we had worked on together, not together, to Austin, and 2 of them had made the finals. And he didn't even tell me that he had submitted them. He was like, I was like, I think this sucks. I think I suck. I don't think I can do this. And he's like, maybe we can. So anyway, that's kind of how it happened. He's a liar and he tricked me. That's how it happened.
I mean, I think one of the most interesting parts for me knowing both of you is that I've always wondered this, like, what is it about the partnership between the two of you that works? How does your partnership work? And what do you think it is that sort of makes it stand the test of time, evolve together? Like, what's that magic ingredient? And I know a lot of people ask us about writing partners, how do you find one, all of that. And I do think there's a sort of a magical element to it of finding that right person. So what do you guys think it is for you?
Trust. For me, 100% trust. Yeah, and knowing that I can lean on him for whether it's something we're working on together, whether it's something he's working on, whether it's something I'm working on. And we fill in each other's gaps, like the character versus the action stuff. I'm getting really good at writing that action stuff. He's getting really good at character, but we're never going to flip. I'm always going to be better at that. He's always going to be better at the action stuff. It's just what we do. It's like saying I'm always going to have kind of blonde hair. He's always going to have dark hair until we both go gray. And then, well, let's not talk about it. So that took a dark turn. Sorry. But yeah, I think I trust him, and I maybe one other person. And he lets me vent, and he lets me boss him around. And he lets me like win the arguments when it comes down to it. And I say, no, we're not doing. No, it's doing like this. And he's like, okay. And then when I was wrong, he doesn't say I told you so. All those.
I think that's very important for you.
But I think ultimately, honestly, it's because of trust, and because we fill in, we really do fill in the weak links. That because I don't know anyone who is so good that they don't need anyone else looking at it, or everyone I think benefits from notes, even if they're shitty notes, because it means something's missing. And the thing that you think is a shitty note, maybe just a note covered in shit. If you wipe the shit away, you find the nugget that's like, oh, that's what they were talking about. It could be something completely different from what they said. And together we hear that when we're on a call together. Thank God we're together, because we have a conversation about a phone call, completely different takes on it. Like, I'm like, no, they said this. He's like, you're high. They said this. Fuck you. They said this. And so together we are complementary, I guess you could say.
I think that's great. Like you're not butting heads with the same strength. You're filling in the gaps.
No, and that's why I think when one of us, when it's in our wheelhouse and the one says no, this is the way it should be, we kind of just back off and say, okay, well, I trust you for that. I will say I told you so, though. He's really nice. He doesn't, but I do. I look for that. I love rubbing it in.
Tobias, what is it?
And there are, we actually rarely disagree. I mean, so disagree to the point of, we talked it through and we're still not seeing eye to eye. So we rarely disagree. But when we do, generally I'll happily cede the point to Mikki, not just because I want peace in the partnership, but, I think Mikki's instincts with character. I sometimes think, character is really the most important component in telling a story. I'm crazy about structure. Mikki can tear her hair out about that. I love writing set pieces, action scenes, but really, I think one of the things that has kept us going all these years is a sort of an acknowledgement that when it comes to the rare disagreement, the character card really trumps everything else. And that's actually served our partnership well, and that's served our work very well as well.
That just means I always win. So it's very well. No, it's true though. It's true. Character is everything. And I know, Shani, you know me, and Tobias, you certainly do. If you talk to me about anything, I'm like, what's the character doing? Who are they? Because if you don't have that, then I don't care how cool and awesome your fucking plot is. If you don't care,
Yeah.
go home. You're going to eat your popcorn and leave.
Yeah.
And be like, I don't know what I just watched.
Yeah.
Cool
One of
fire.
the
Cool
yeah.
crash.
One of the early scripts that Mikki and I bonded over, I had written this gigantic action movie with, really great set pieces. It was paced perfectly. It was, it was novel and original.
His
but it
beats fell on every single page just right.
That's exactly right. But it kind of left you cold reading it, right? The characters that were inhabiting that story, it wasn't working. And this was very early on, and before we were officially partners, Mikki took that script, worked on it for 3 months, sent it back, and it was amazing. It was still my story, but it was expressed in a way that was beyond my ability. And that was a wonderful moment reading that script and seeing what she could do.
Thank you very much. I think that's really the crux of it, I guess, listening is our partnership works again because we complement each other, but it's also seamless. Like once you read a script from us, you might know who wrote what, but you might not, because when we go into each other's work and start messing around, we do so in a way that leaves it the way it was, but totally changes it. So, and we're both pretty good at doing that. Yeah.
How do you guys work together? Do you write together all the time, or do you write pages and then share? Like,
It depends.
Depends. Okay.
It depends. We've done it every single way. We've written in the room together, but normally we don't write always at the same time, I'd say. But when we do, there's this great program called TeamViewer that Spice found that lets us watch each other's computers. So he usually signs into mine when we use it, and I'll be on the phone, and we're literally together, just not in the same.
Mm-hmm. But we've done everything.
That thing called, what did you just say?
TeamViewer. TeamViewer, and it's amazing. If you have a writing partner and you're not like in each other's like space, then it's ideal. It's better than Collaborate. It's whatever that thing is called. It's better than all those. TeamViewer is the one.
Awesome. We already have a tip, people. We already have a tip.
What?
But we've done everything. We've exchanged scenes. We would write one scene, she would write scene, we'd swap those scenes.
Tell them my favorite one.
We were hired to write basically a heist movie.
Super fun.
And I would write scenes with no dialogue. I mean, I put in, this character says blank, something. This character says blank. And I would send, Mikki the scene, and she would, she'd fill in the dialogue. She'd adjust the scene as well, because you can't divorce action from dialogue entirely. But
I didn't realize that's what he was going to do. I didn't realize that's what he was going to do. He said, I'm just going to let you do the character stuff. I said, okay, all right, just send me the 20 pages, because I was working on something else, because we're always kind of working on, and we flip. I'll work for a little while on something and then flip it, right? So he sent that to me, and I had no idea when he said, I'm going to let you do the character stuff. It literally came. They're in a car. They're driving to the bank. Rhea says X, 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 X. Boyd says X, 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 as Will is loading the chamber of his gun, and all this action. And then Rhea says X, 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 X. Will says X. And the whole thing, it was 20 pages of maybe there was one technical guy who did a lot of talking, because Spice knows that I'm not going to know the tech stuff, the nerdy stuff, and pulling an alarm apart and figuring out the wires. He knows all those words, so he put that in there. But otherwise, I got 20 pages of it's where he wanted someone to say something, and they were all X's. But that was so much fun because I did it almost without changing I think it was so much fun because it was almost didn't change even any of the action that he did. I'm like, let me see if I can do this. So I need a dialogue that said it, that informed the characters from page 1, but I was given the parameters of these things are happening. Don't fuck with them. So it turned out really well. We did the whole rest of the script that way, pretty much.
Awesome.
It was fun.
What a crazy, fun, weird exercise.
And it was fun.
That's awesome. Okay. So, oh, I forgot to mention, everybody watching, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A box, and then right towards the end, we're going to try to hit those questions and try to answer them. So if you have questions, put them in the Q&A box. Don't put them in the chat. Okay, so let's talk about when you guys started taking meetings. We're gonna get into the meeting talk now. So when you guys started getting meetings, what was that like together in a room? Let's talk about general meetings. I know now tons of these are on Zoom and all that, but when you guys, when you guys were starting out, you were probably going to rooms, right? You were like in the space. Can you guys just talk about the beginning of that, and then sort of like how you evolved and what you learned? And I think Tobias is frozen on his screen. I thought he was contemplating, but okay, he's coming back.
Oh yeah, there you go. I thought he was just sitting there.
Too.
Because listen, we know him. We're both like, oh, he's just sleeping. I think that's, I don't want to prioritize one moment over another one. I love having him as a partner, but meetings and pitches, it is so I took one meeting by myself and one pitch by myself when Spice was out of town. And it's not the same. There's something about the energy of going in there with someone else, with someone you trust, with someone who has your back, and someone who knows the story as well as you do. And so those first meetings, backing up from pitches, the first meetings were exciting. They were terribly exciting. I'm a little bit of, I don't like to get excited. I know Joe, the writing group that we all met at, you guys, Joe, he always wants me to be way, I'm like, because I always feel if I get excited, nothing's ever going to match it. So I'm just like, rolling, next. But there's some pretty fucking exciting things that have happened. And those first meetings were, some of them, it was daunting and scary because you're walking into producers' offices. It's where you've always wanted to be, right? If you're trying to be a writer in town. And I was so thankful to look over and have someone just as scared and excited as I was with me. But then, what would you say about this first meeting, Spice? I mean, they're just talking about you. Get your origin story down, because everybody's going to say, when did you start writing? How'd you guys meet? Where'd you come from? What's going on? Know it like the back of your hand. Know your answers. Make it fun. Don't try to make joke. Like, don't like stage your jokes. I'm not saying that. Don't be a dumbass. But sorry guys, to no one in particular. We got our first meeting with. There's a question I was about to answer.
But Mikki is definitely right. I mean, the partnership has served us so well in those meetings. Even when we're pitching, right? We'll take turns. One person will be saying something, and while Mikki is talking her piece of the pitch, I'm getting ready for mine, and vice versa. It makes the whole process of pitching, easier. And Mikki's absolutely right. The vibe, it's weird, because not only is it more comfortable for Mikki and I because we have each other, I feel it's also more comfortable for the executive because it's not a one-on-one like job interview type setting. Yeah, as soon as you get that third person in there, as soon as you get the third person in there, everybody automatically just feels more relaxed. Yeah.
It's almost like the energy disperses a little bit, so everybody gets a little bit, and nobody has all the pressure on them. And the executives, they have pressure on them too. When you're in their offices for meetings, they're taking meetings, but they want to make a good impression too. So I think we got used to it pretty quickly. I'm from a big family. I got a loud mouth. I don't get really incredibly intimidated by many people. So I think that's helped us, and probably not in some cases, but I think that definitely helps take the edge off of the meetings, is because we're all in the same business. And once you get in the business, the meetings also, I think, get a little bit more relaxed because they're peers now, instead of, you're always trying to impress, obviously, because you want them to like your story, you want them to like you, you want to get the job. But at the same time, it's not that, I don't know, it levels out a little bit in a way. Do you know what I mean? And you start getting used to it. I think practice, you're never going to be totally prepared for your first general meeting, but it's always going to be fun, hopefully. But we had one pitch where the fucking executive fell asleep. So shit happens, it's like, here it is. They're like, and we're like, should we stop? So we've had those moments. And then we've had ones where the executives were literally crying. Crying. And those are the good ones, That's when you're like,
tears, right? Not like,
totally got this
you
job.
guys are terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you guys are getting ready to go and pitch, whatever you're working on, or if you're going in knowing an assignment, knowing what it is and you're pitching your version of the story, how do you guys prepare? What is your preparation? Do you actually practice it to
Yes.
the point of, okay,
Yes,
tell me about your
we do. We go in, it probably seems like we're really loose and we're really cool and chill, but we write our pitch out. Usually it starts 25 to 30 pages. We just do the whole thing. And what happens to me particularly is once I start writing it, I'm writing the movie. Like I'm just writing it. So I'll have 30 pages of fucking pitch that has dialogue and everything in it. And then Tobias will do, we do our thing, we switch. And then Tobias always tells me it's too long, and I say he's crazy, it's a minute a page, and he says you're dumb, it's like 3 minutes a page for a pitch. So that's the same. We had that argument every time, and we end up with it between 15 and 20 pages. 20 pages is too long, really, for one of our pitches. But about a 15-page written out, we write it, and then we divide it up into who's going to do what. So it's kind of like little sections. Like we'll do like 2 paragraphs, whatever. As the energy changes, the moment changes, we switch. Which is really great for the executives because they get to look at me, then they get to look at him, and there's, like you said, the pressure's not there. Hi, little guinea pig eater. And then what I do, which is separate to Tobias, I'll let you talk about your. Then we practice together and we practice separately, and our best pitches have been when we know it so well that we don't even look at the page, and I will record the whole pitch like in a voice recorder, and I'll just listen to it for days. That way, if you lose a line, it's almost like for a stage play or something, you just get the whole thing in. So the story is literally a part of me. So if one of us goes rogue, we can back up, because I'll do it. I'll do it every time in a pitch. I'll start just changing shit. And I think preparation allows you to do that. The more prepared you are, the more freedom you have when you're in the room, if that makes sense. So I do. And then we practice together a few times, and then we go in. And then so Spice has his own way he practices.
I've I've printed out the headshots of like the executives that we're pitching to. I'll tape it to a piece of furniture, and I'll pitch to that headshot. Mm-hmm. I've practiced. I used to really memorize the pitch. I found that's counterproductive, because it does, Mikki said, you want to be able to swerve and dodge, not only go off on tangents, but oftentimes the executive will interrupt with a question or a clarification, mm-hmm. or whatever. And so not being too regimented about it, which being too regimented is something I very easily fall into. That's really.
You're frozen, honey.
It's Frozen and a lovely eyes closed. Maybe he needs to go off and back on. Okay, so while we get Tobias back on here, Mikki, talk to me about how long, when you guys go in and you're pitching, how long are you talking for? And Tobias mentioned that sometimes like executives will throw in questions. What's the dynamic like normally for you guys?
Yeah, so we go in and it's hi. Hopefully it's someone you've met before. Then it's super easy. You know, you get where you're pitching the same people, you know, like if we go to a pitch in Lionsgate, we know them, you know, so it's like, hey, what have you been doing? Oh my God, your kids are blah, 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 you know, oh, I heard you went to Peru or whatever. But then it's, we just get into the pitch and I'm back to the more you know it, the more freedom you have in going off book or when they stop you and ask you, they're like, wait a minute, what did you say? And then you just, if you have your pitch and don't just know the pitch, know everything about the movie you want to sell them. You should, my advice would, you should be able to leave right then and start writing that script without working anything else, all the little shit that you're going, oh, we'll work that out in the script. No, don't work it out now. Be ready now, because if they ask you in the room, well, how are you prepared to handle this? You better fucking know.
Yeah. This is where Mikki's, this is where the 30 pages that we eventually shrink down, but this is where the 30 pages is really helpful. I mean, we literally have lines of dialogue in a lot of the key scenes. And 90% of that dialogue we're not going to mention in the pitch, but we know it so well. It's good, the questions that come out and things like that. We're ready.
Yeah.
So I just want to clarify, when you guys are going into meetings, like in this scenario, this is not a script. Like for us who aren't at that stage yet, we're writing spec scripts. So we already have the script written if we're going and we're trying to sell that script. In this case, are you guys going and trying to get a job on a story they're looking for the writers, or are you guys going in with, okay.
We have been incredibly blessed. Like we get assignment work, which is to us the pinnacle. I mean, you always want to write your own stories, you always want to have your own projects going, but assignment work, I mean, that's the shit that we've been the most blessed to have. They're almost always produced because they come from the studio. So Llorona, Nightbooks, 5 Feet Apart, all of them were assignment work. And those are our 3 produced films. All this time is getting, because of those 3 movies, the book got made. And because the book got produced and published, then the movies get, you see what I mean? So assignment work is incredible. And so when you're going in, sorry, the birds kind of totally just like grabbed my brain and ran away.
But we've when it was Llorona, it was just a concept. The studio had a concept, they had the idea to make a movie about Llorona. When it was Nightbooks, there was actually the studio and the producers had a book, an underlying book. But in both cases, they wanted to hear a story from us, either an original story about Llorona or an adaptation of the book.
And 5 Feet Apart was the same. They had, Justin, the director, and he was the producer also, one of the producers, he said, I have this friend Claire and I have this idea and I want to do a story in a hospital about 2 kids who fall in love, but they can't touch each other. That's what he gave. That's what he was giving people. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I got this story all day long, So from that line, sometimes, and like Spice said, new line, it was, we want to do a story about this legend. That's it. So a bunch of people do a bunch of ideas and bring them in and pitch. So is that what you were asking?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because when you said you have your 30 pages with your dialogue and stuff in it, that's something that hasn't been written yet. You are pitching your idea.
No. When you have a spec script, sometimes they'll bring you in because they'll want to talk to you about it. Okay, so we have both situations. We've had a spec when Elsewhere, which is the coma script, which is now All This Time, which is now Lionsgate. We're working on Lionsgate. That thing has been through the ringer. So that got on the blacklist after it almost won Austin. And that's kind of how we got our first meetings. That's how we got, because everybody read it. But you do get general meetings from a spec script. And what they want to know is how open are you to changing things? If they love everything but the last act, what would you do with it? Like, so yeah, we've been in both situations where we were there because of a spec, or we were there because of an assignment, like an open writing assignment is what it's called, an OWA. Yeah, and in both cases, know your story. Like that is, I couldn't give you the biggest pieces of advice I would say: know your story and be nice and be fun, because half of what they're looking for is a good story, and the other half is, do they like you and can they stand to be in a room with you for 24 hours a day? Because that happens. Are you going to be the asshole that they call in the middle of the night? Are you going to be problematic if they give notes? Are you going to be fun on the set? Are you going to be cool? Are you going to be chill? And we found that personality in the room, I think, has a lot to do, we feel like, with who they will choose. If they have, two people really close together, like, I like this, I like that, but they're going to be fun, let's pick them, Yeah, I know I'm going off the topic, but it's all the same.
You're not. No, this is all the same topic. We're trying to get.
I do not keep my language clean. I say fuck at least 7 times. As soon as I walk in, I tell them, I warn them. I'm like, I'm a fuck girl. Now, anybody have a problem with it? I told Shayna before this thing started. I'm sorry, I'm looking at questions. I can't help it.
Okay.
It's also 5:41. I always ask, how do you feel about language? And everybody's usually like, fuck yes. I'm like, okay, great. And if they don't like it, then I try to cool it. But I say fuck a lot, among other things, and I don't worry about it.
Good for you. Okay, so how do you guys work? Let's say you're in the room and, well, first of all, let me back up 1 second. When you guys are starting your pitches, what are you starting with? Are you diving right into the story, or do you start with something? We've heard a lot of things about start with something personal, make a personal connection. Like, do you do that, or is that like, no?
You know what? We don't really have a set start. Sometimes if there is a personal connection, it's good to lead with that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we'll jump right into the story. Sometimes we'll actually give little bios of the main characters before we actually jump into the narrative. Mm-hmm. It's really project dependent, how we kick things off in a pitch. I think all 3 are valid. Our manager always asks us, is there a personal connection to this? Or what is it about this story that excites you? Mention that in the room, talk about that in the room. So there's that. And sometimes laying out some of the key characters before you jump into the story allows for a cleaner way to just get the plot out afterwards.
Yeah. That's something we started doing a little bit later, because it's trial and error, right? You get better at it. And we found that people get lost and they'll go, who is that again? So if it's a bigger story that we have, that we know you're going to need to keep up with a couple of things, we'll lay those out. We'll give spoilers. We're like, look, we're going to give you a spoiler because you need to know it, because you need to keep up. And they're like, okay, great. What is it? And then so we say this, this, and this, and this. And then they're like, oh shit. I'm like, now let's tell you how we got there. And then we go on, right? So we'll do that, or we'll do, I think Spice is right. It's project dependent, and it's, but it depends on, and who you're talking to, because you'll do well if you can read the energy of a room. If you can walk in and tell who is a sourpuss, like I said, we went to a pitch where somebody fucking fell asleep. And we were like, I guess that's our cue. Yeah. We didn't do this one. But then we've been to ones where they're so excited. So you just go with what you've got, just kind of go off that energy and find your person. Generally, most pitches are going to happen with more than one person. You're almost never going to pitch to just one person. Just try to find the one who's more excited and pitch more to them, because that'll kind of rev you up, we don't have a set
No,
I have a set.
there's, you know,
We're
employ
no
common
help. We're no
sense.
help. Why did you call us?
You know, we've pitched on a number of books. Nightbooks was a book that we've pitched on some other books.
That's
So one of the
something
things we talk about is the reason everybody is in that room is because they all love the book.
Yeah.
So talk about that. Lead with that. What is it about the book that you like, that we liked? What is it about the book that you think would make such a great movie? You know,
Yeah.
so compliment the book, compliment their taste in finding the book, things like that.
Okay.
all that.
What were you going to say about Nightbooks? Which I love, by the way.
Oh, thank you. We have found that when we got early on, when we were getting books to pitch, some people bring visuals. We don't generally. We found that when we try to go too far away from the source material, there's a reason they bought the book.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're given a book, listen, we get it. We're luckily where we kind of have to pass on some opportunities. We're not passing on jobs. It's just like, do you want to pitch this? Used to, we pitched every fucking thing and we found a reason to love it. Everything somebody would give us, we would pitch it. And we would do it again if we had time, because it's just kind of like that thing. It's like, oh my God, somebody gives a shit what I think about this. But love something about the book. I think what we found is every time we pitched for a book that we wanted to change too much because we didn't love it, of course we didn't get the job, because why would they buy a book they didn't like? That was, it took us way too long to learn that lesson. It is spice. I'm definitely saying spice. And it's because I say it fast, because when I first met him, I came to California and from Georgia, and Elizabeth had just started really dressed. Elizabeth is his wife. And I got into the writing group at Joe's, which is Twin Bridges. And you guys would, if you could go, he's amazing. It's amazing. And he was so shy. Like, you guys don't know how much more open he is now, because it was good luck getting him to say boo, And so when I first met him, and a great writer who's like, hi, So when I first met him in writing group, he was like, ham twice, but he said it really fast, because ham twice. And I'm like, did he say spice? And he was very, dressed very LA, and I'm this country girl from stupid Podunk, Georgia. And I'm like, oh my God, he said his name is Spice. And I was like, well, okay, I mean, I'm not going to judge. It's LA. All right, Spice. But I truly thought his name was Spice for 3 months. And because of my accent in class, I would say Spice really fast. And everybody thought I was saying Tobias really fast. And then there was one Saturday morning, I agreed with something. I was sitting by Bob Watson, and he said something. I said, I agree with Spice. And I said it slowly enough that Bob said, what did you just call him? Did you just call him Spice? And I said, well, yeah, that's his name. And everybody died, but it's his name now. So yes, Mary is Spice. Spice. My spicy spice.
I was going to ask you that at the beginning, and then I kept not asking. But I didn't know that story. That's amazing. So in the questions, I'm going to go to the bottom. Art is asking, you mentioned Austin. Do you guys recommend festivals and conferences?
Yes.
And which ones?
Austin launched us. We are always, anytime Austin Film Festival wants something from us, we give it, because they, we had heard too, like, festivals don't work, competitions don't work. Yes, they fucking do. But know your stuff, submit the right projects. And yeah, we got everything that we're doing right now is because of Austin Film Festival, because we nearly won. We got our manager and our agent there. We got them actually before we left, because one of the adjudicators sent our script to his agent and manager and was like, you need to read this. And then the agent called us and said, hey, I wanted to talk to you guys. Are you going to Austin? We're like, nah. And he was like, yeah, you probably should go. We're like, nah, it doesn't matter. We don't care. And he's like, you need to go. And we were like, why? And he's like, because you might win. And we're like, what? And he's like, no, we think it's like between you and one other, and you should go. And while you're there, we want to be your agent. So that's kind of happened. Yeah, competitions, and especially the big ones. I'm not going to dog any of the smaller ones, honestly. But Austin,
Nickel Fellowship.
Nickel, what are other people? You get representation here. If you get to the final, someone's calling you and they want to talk to you and they want to see what else you have. Nickel, Austin, there are a couple more, right? Sundance, does Sundance have a screenwriting one?
They have a lab that you can try to get into.
Yeah. But we don't dog competitions around here. We like them.
Whatever it takes, I think.
Yeah.
Whatever you
And yeah, that's exactly right. And also, I mean, look, they're expensive. I mean, that's the downside. But one of the things competitions can also do is you can kind of vet your material. Judging is very objective, is very subjective from one competition to another. But if you enter your material in enough competitions, you start getting a sense what's working and what's not. If you can afford to do it, it's $50 per submission, so it's not cheap by any means. But it can also it can help guide you along along the material that kind of people are responding to and what people are not responding to.
Excellent. Christy Daniels is asking, but what if you have a good script but less than magnetic personality? Any advice? Asking for a friend.
Get drunk. No, I'm kidding. Full Tobias thing, get drunk first. No.
Are there any tools or anything that you guys know? I mean, Tobias, you're a little bit more shy than Mikki. Are there any tools that you use to sort of like?
Let Mikki do the talking.
Get a partner.
I think I put an unfair weight on that. It's not necessarily about being magnetic. Be likable, and you can be quiet and be likable. You can be shy and be likable. You can be introverted and be very, very likable. Don't be an asshole. Don't be the quiet person who doesn't want to say anything, or who gets butt hurt if someone asks you a question in the middle of your pitch, or that's what I mean when I'm saying like play the room, have fun.
That's right.
And be yourself. I mean, if you're not like a loudmouth like me, don't try to be one, because it'll come. These people see people like us every day. They'll see right through you if you're fake. Like, be as authentic, I think, to yourself as you can. If I tried to walk in there and be like this, like if I tried to tone it down and be very simpering and not myself, it would sound like such bullshit, so I think be authentic and taking back the magnetic personality and say be likable, be somebody that they feel okay to call at 3 a.m. if the producer goes. I mean, listen, we were working on 5 Feet Apart. Like, Kathy Schulman and I were literally on the phone at 3 a.m. She would call me and say, hey, I have an idea. I'm like, what is it? I'm up. Be that person that they don't have to worry about you being like, oh my God, don't you know it's after 8 o'clock? No. I mean, yeah.
That's exactly right. Filmmaking is a deeply collaborative process.
Yeah.
So you want to come across as someone who will be fun to work with, who will be cooperative. Now, at the same time, they want people with points of view. They want people with strong creative opinions. So it's not as if you cave to every suggestion, or but at the same time, that meeting is about, can I work with this person? Are they willing to listen to my opinion about this material? So yeah.
And we're not saying like disregard WGA guidelines or whatever, but one of the good things I consider about being above the title, which is what you are as a writer, is you don't have those same kind of limitations on, they can't ask you to work 24/7. Sure they can, because it's your fucking job. You're above the title. You're one of the creatives. You're there to create this project. So I guess that's what just be easygoing.
Be easy to work with.
Be easy to work with.
Wants to do.
Yeah, Shana, there are people who are just assholes and they can't help it. Try not to be that person.
Don't be an asshole. That's what we.
If you're an asshole, then don't be authentic. Figure out a way to work around it.
Carolyn she said, "Love you guys. Ever
Love
done
you.
good stuff in animation?"
We haven't done any animation yet. This is going to be recorded and blasted, right? I won't say anything else.
Okay, but maybe in the no. Okay.
No, it's a money issue. It's a.
Don't say anything. You're fine. There's your answer.
Yeah, I love animated movies. I would, and we found with Nightbooks that we were surprisingly adept at writing children's stuff, and we want to do so much more of it. But I don't know about the animation scene. It may change. We don't know. But we don't. I love it. I watch cartoon movie all day long. Like Disney is like my go-to when it's in the background.
Did you like Turning Red?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah. Did anybody not like it? Hello.
Okay, so there's a question about pitching a TV series. You guys don't do TV, so I'm not going to do that.
Let's see it though. Let's see. If you're planning on pitching a series, does it help or hurt if you're able to scrabble together enough to essentially film? Do you want to film a pilot? Wait, do you want to film a pilot before you go in?
Oh, are you in the chat?
Edward, I'm potentially, yes. I don't know. If you have a manager or something, that might be, I'm sorry about the planes. I've been muting it when I hear them coming over. I don't know unless you want to put your own money in it. Unless you're sending it to like a competition, like a short film competition or something, a pitch deck. Yes, do a pitch deck, but they're not always going to ask for it, but it won't hurt to have one in your back pocket. It's a lot of work. But if suddenly they say, hey, we really love this, or if you're in there, you say, look, I got a pitch deck, if you feel like they're going for it, they're on your side, if they're liking it. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with building a pitch deck, but filming a pilot with your own money or scrabbling it together for a pitch, I don't know. I mean, we had a friend who did that and it didn't go anywhere and it was a shit ton of money. And they just sent the pilot around and it was good. It was a good pilot, but and I don't know. It's up to you.
Awesome. I'm going to do one more question and then I'm going to give you guys a minute to give your final sort of like thoughts, words of advice to screenwriters. Mary is asking, this is more a writing question than a pitching question, but when writing your own original scripts, how much do you outline before writing the script?
I don't. I don't even write out a pitch. If it's one of mine, I outline in my head. You'll get, and a lot of people want an outline. Listen, some people, it is a personal preference. An outline locks me in. I don't need it because it's always it's such a relief. I know. I'd rather eat shit than write an outline, honey. I just can't do it. I can't do it. To me, it all happens in my head. So once I sit down to write a story, it's in here, it's outlined. And I like that too, to write the ending and then fill it in. Yeah, I like when you know somewhere. I like when I'll tell you what I will have for sure are my main points. Like I know this needs to happen. I know this needs to happen. I know this needs to happen. And I know this is how it ends. And then you have to do the hard part of all the connective tissue. So yeah. The connective tissue is the rough stuff. It's that little shit that ties it all together. But if you know where you're going, yeah. But no, I don't outline. I don't know about spies.
No, even me who, is such a stickler for structure. It's hard enough to sit down and write a script page but at least when you're writing a script page, you're writing a movie. You can be excited about that. It is so dreadfully difficult to sit down and write
like homework.
Yeah, we have done some versions of outlines. They're sometimes called beat sheets. We have done that for producers who want kind of a little bit of a roadmap of where we're going or whatever. So it's not like we've never done it, but when we have the choice, when we're doing our own thing or whatever, our own process, usually we don't. But we know writers that outline is a key part of their process.
Lisa
And
Marie outlines every word, and
Yep.
she's a great writer. She's successful. She works all the fucking time. She is an outliner. She outlines what she's going to write. And I'm like, why are you working twice? Why are you doing your work twice? But she does it. She needs it. She gets her whole story down, and then she hammers out that script much faster than I ever could. So I think there's a give and take there. If you do the work beforehand and you're not going to go wild and change everything on page 30, then it can be very helpful, because I know when Lisa Marie's doing it, thank you, and I do cuss a lot. Thank you very much. I'm impressed by her writing her outlines, because then she sits down in a weekend and can bang out like her pilot, right? She does TV. Whereas it would take me much longer to do 60 pages, because yes, it's in my head, but I'm not just glancing at, I don't have it all the connective tissue gets worked out in an outline, I think. Yeah, pantsers. I'm a pantser.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this up at 6 o'clock. I'm gonna try to get these guys out of here.
Bye, guys.
What is your last bit of advice for our amazing people who've stuck with us for this hour? Screenwriters, filmmakers in general, just business wise or creative wise.
I'll let Spice go first.
Okay.
This is a piece of advice.
I talked way too much.
This is a piece of advice that Mikki and I often give in events like this. I'm going back to that big action horror movie that I had written.
You're gonna steal mine. Go ahead. We're giving the same advice.
Yep. Well, I'll start it. What was missing from that script was a love story.
Oh, never mind. You're giving the other one. I'll give the next one. You go ahead.
Yeah. What was missing from that script was a love story.
He's actually giving mine, and I'm going to give his.
Okay, great.
I didn't. Go ahead, do it.
Mikki and I always, it's one of the very first things we look for when we approach any project. The Curse of La Llorona is a horror movie. But first, what is the love story in that movie? It was ultimately a love story between a single mother and her children, and trying to protect her children from this evil entity. Same thing with Nightbooks, same thing with 5 Feet Apart. Start with the love story. Start with the thing that will really grab the hearts of your audience, and then you can scare them. You can excite them through action scenes. You can, make them cry through a breakup. So find your love story
through a horror scene. Yeah.
That would be, that's something that was really illuminating to me when Mikki, worked on this script of mine for 3 months and sent it back. That's what was missing. And that's what made that script work.
Yeah, he gave it to him. I'm like, you don't have a love story. He's like, it's not a love story movie. I'm like, every movie is a love story.
That's right.
Every movie is a love story. And it's funny because he gave my advice and I'm about to give his. And that's it. Every movie is a love story. It's any kind of love story, like father, son, brother, sister. That his was the brother, sister one, not like Game of Thrones. And mine, which is AKA Spice's advice, is write your moonshot script. If you are working on something, you want to write to something you think will sell, but what got us our jobs and our start were scripts that no one was going to make. And it's because what they see in them is your passion and your talent. It always shows up for you if you love what you're doing. If you're writing now to try to write something that's going to get bought, you're already, in our opinion, kind of shooting, you're handicapping yourself. You're kneecapping yourself already because you're trying to write for something you don't know what they want. Mm-hmm. That may be the movies they make, but you don't know what they want. So give them the project that's the most passionate, that you're the most passionate about, that your heart is in, that you've always wanted. I don't care if it takes place on Mars. Set it on fucking Mars. Write the shit out of it. It may never get made, but you will get jobs, and that's what you want.
Right. Excellent.
And
Thank
that's Tobias's advice, and he gave mine, which is always write a love story.
Oh, and that how it wraps up your partnership. You guys are the cutest. Uh, well, thank you guys so much for joining me and all of us to talk about your journey and your advice. It's so
Write a love story on the moon. Yes.
yes.
Do it. I want to read that one.
Obviously we're gonna see you guys on the screen again. And I loved Nightbooks. It was like one of my favorites.
Thank you.
And I know
you.
Dave, the director, so it was like this lovely.
Oh, you know Dave. Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
I've known him for a long time.
We love Dave. We love Dave. We love Autumn. Yeah, they're both awesome.
So that was just so happy for me when I heard that. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, check out the events page. We're gonna do, these kinds of conversations all the time as we have been doing. So all right, that's it for tonight. Have a great weekend. Happy Mother's Day to me. And
happy Mother's Day, Shane.
thank you. And we'll see you guys soon.